Hello, everybody, and welcome back to That's Football. It's Friday, and I'm back with Don Robbie to predict the games from the weekend and talk about all the big topical stuff. Man City in crisis again. How you doing, Robbie?
I'm good. I was wondering why you got me here. Because, FA Cup weekend got nothing to do with me, has it?
Hey, you have more weekends off than a school teacher at the moment. It's we were just talking about after the international break as well. There's beware, Arsenal fans. It's you don't got a lot to do in March.
I ain't got nothing to do, man. You know what I mean? I might just go and watch a couple of non-league games or something. You know what I mean? I don't know what I'm going to do.
I know. What ideas for Robbie at the weekend? Bit of gardening, maybe John Lewis shopping. Yeah. Oh God, it's tough when football's your life, trying to fill a weekend, isn't it?
Honestly, you don't mind it when it's the odd week because it's actually nice because you get a nice weekend, chill out. But when it's like a couple of weeks and then you're seeing all the games going on around you, you're like, hey, come on, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would have loved to have still been in the FA Cup. I ain't going to lie, because especially the way our season's been going, it would have been great. But
I know. And obviously we beat you on penalties, but I mean, I'm really glad we did because we'd have you just sat around doing nothing, aren't you? And let's start off with Arsenal. We're going to go back to our win, lose or draw. Robbie was 1 in front. I think, if he's feeling a bit miserable about the weekend off, he's expanded his lead. We'll go through that in a minute. But midweek fixtures, Arsenal not scoring again, 2 games, 1 point from 6. And you said last week that the title you think is going to go to Liverpool. What you're feeling about Aston at the moment? Because I know we spoke on Monday and you were saying you're very angry. I saw Piers Morgan this week trying to sort of say whoever's responsible for not getting a striker, and he was naming Arteta. I pretty much remember Arteta came out and did a statement at the start of Feb saying he was unhappy. So where are you now as an Arsenal fan? Are you frustrated? Champions League, do you fancy that?
Yeah, the Champions League without our front line. You know what I mean? I'm very frustrated as well. I think every Arsenal fan that I meet is so frustrated with what happened in January. And I said the other day after our game, straight maths. No strikers equal no goals. We dominated that game against Nottingham Forest, all over them the whole game, which is not an easy thing to do. They're a very good side. We absolutely dominated the game, but when it got down to the final third, we had nothing. Nuno Espirito Santo said that he knows Arsenal haven't got a striker, so he just flooded the midfield and made it really, really difficult for us because they were happy to just try and get a point. So if you've got no striker, and we've got no forward players really, apart from just Trossard, a 70-year-old kid in 1 year. He's going to be great, but he should really be coming on and making an impact really at this time in his career. Mikel Merino, who's not a striker, he's trying his hardest, but he's not a striker. And then a horribly off form Sterling. Somebody does have to take the blame because they knew that Sterling's been horribly off form since we got him on loan. So you're not going to be able to rely on him, right? And then, in January, we could have done something about it. Jesus is out for the rest of the season. Saka's out, long-term injury, probably not back at the very earliest till the end of April. Somebody there should have brought somebody in. And they made a decision in January that they can't see anybody. They're not bringing anybody in. That's fair enough if that's how you feel. But when it starts to go wrong now, you've got to take the blame. Somebody should be coming out and saying, you know what, we made a horrible mistake. At the very least, they should be coming out and saying that, because just leaving it up in the air like this, and Arteta's got to defend it every press conference. And you're right. I very much doubt it was solely down to him, because he was there in January saying we have to buy a forward player. And I've never heard him speak like that before.
No, it wasn't.
And listen, he takes some of the blame because in the summer he should have bought a striker and he didn't. But he was saying that he has to bring in reinforcements in January and they didn't do it. And I'd love to know whose decision that was and the reasons why. And I think every fan would love to know that, because we're still, Nottingham Forest away. The away end's packed. We're still out there in our numbers. But it's really frustrating. It's like they just gave up on the league. How are you supposed to win a Champions League with the team that we've got at the moment? I mean, it's ridiculous.
I think, look, we've sort of had it a little bit with Manchester United, and we should have done stuff in January. And you see, we're really short ourselves. But for Arsenal,
at least you bought someone.
Well, also for Arsenal, it's a striker, isn't it? It's a whole area of the pitch where you just haven't got somebody. And I always say football's quite simple, and I think owners and everybody else try and overcomplicate it and think they're going to get away with it. And like you say, there's all those Arsenal fans, and I think clubs are sort of I'm not saying it was always great anyway, but I think the way fans are treated, that there should be some more communication. You certainly get it in Germany. They have much more communication above the manager. And we were just talking about off air there, how this is the FA Cup, which we'll talk about in a moment. And they got rid of FA Cup replays because the demands on basically Premier League players. Man United had just announced at the end of the season they're off to the other side of the world to play a couple of lucrative friendlies, and you think you're taking the piss. Like, you actually are taking the piss. It's all about money. And I think Arsenal probably. I was out last night actually speaking to some Villa fans, and they were like, Ollie Watkins, I reckon if Arsenal had gone 65, 67, we might have done something. Our only issue was because Duran had gone, it was like, can we get a replacement in? But there's a price where you go, this is a really good deal. But Arsenal,
there was other players, Mark.
Yeah.
There was other players. There's loan deals. There's because the other thing that they made a massive error is they should actually have been signing someone right at the start of the January transfer window. Because when you looked at Arsenal's fixtures in January, they had Manchester United in the FA Cup. That's never, even though United have not been on form, we know that United, when they're playing Arsenal, it's a different game. They step up to the plate. It's a different, right? That's going to be a tough game. So they knew that they had Newcastle over 2 legs, tough game, in the Carabao Cup semi-final, so a chance to go to a final. And they knew that they had Manchester United in the FA Cup right at the start of the window. They should have gone and got someone in as reinforcements, and they didn't do it. Threw away both of those two, and then they still after that had a chance, right? Because Liverpool now started to falter a bit. You know what I mean? Couple of draws and that. We're starting to get within striking distance, and they did nothing. And to me, it's absolutely criminal, Mark. Criminal, and very unfair on the fans.
I'm looking at this in January. I mean, January transfer window is coming, like you say. It's open on the 1st of Jan. Saturday the 4th, you draw at Brighton 1-1 in the league. Obviously, you've mentioned the cup games against Newcastle and United, but then 18th of Jan at home 2-2 with Arsenal. So there's 4 points dropped in the league. You're out the Carabao Cup and you're out the FA Cup, and exactly. Yeah.
I'll tell you the other thing, Mark. Arsenal don't have a sporting director right now. Because Edu left he left way before the January transfer window. So they have a sporting director, but they still haven't appointed anybody. So again, you just look on it and you think, absolute mess. Who was it doing the deals? Who was picking up the phone and trying to get deals done? There's some little inexperienced people that are not sporting directors and hold no influence. So again, it's a royal mess up. And somebody for me should come out and explain to the fans, because the fans have been right behind the team over the last season, over the last few years. Nobody can say Arsenal fans have been, you'll have a few fans really, but the vast majority of fans have been right behind this team. They have been starting to move towards challenging. And we were so close last year, and then we haven't done the business this year. And then to me in January, they just put money over glory. Right. And it's not to say, listen, you could go out there, you could get Ollie Watkins, you could get this, you could get that, and we still don't win the league because Liverpool have been brilliant, right? But at least you tried. But for me,
and you also get 4 months, don't you, for him to, settle in for next season.
What I saw was Arsenal, the people above just saying, "Nah, you know what? It's no point."
It's a bad.
Well, they're not the ones. They're not the ones. They're not the ones at the City ground on a Wednesday night, flipping, freezing their asses off. You know what I mean?
It's a worrying thing, because I think when a football club sends a message that it doesn't really matter, that does go down to the club. I mean, I look at United, we're terrible, but I do think there is an effect on how the clubs run.
Yeah.
I think you look at Spurs last year. Oh, it's all right to lose to Man City to stop Arsenal winning the league. And I mean, Spurs have always been Spursy anyway, but you set the standard, don't you?
Yeah.
And I think it's also worrying for Arsenal that you haven't got that director of football in yet, because we've had it at United as well, where Ten Hag comes in May, and you're going to struggle to do that window because they're coming in late. Most top, like Liverpool, will have their targets lined up for the summer. A lot of clubs will. So Arsenal, I know, have probably got players lined up, but
that's
if a new
the
director
summer.
of football comes in,
that's the summer. What about now? I mean, we're in March. I don't care about the summer right now. What I care about is what we're seeing right in front of us right now, right? And they did nothing about it. You know, these clubs are all, like you said, you just named, even United, as you're saying. I don't want to hear, not the fans, I think it's really unfair on the fans, but the United manager or, well, listen, it's probably not even down to him, but anybody at United, like above the officials, can't moan about injuries now when you're going away immediately after the season finishes, going to the Far East to go and play football.
I think,
You can't moan about injuries now. You can't moan about the demands on players and that because you're putting them on it yourself just for money.
Talking about money, this might be of interest. I mean, I think we'll talk about the FA Cup in a moment, but La Liga president Javier Tebas says he's reported Man City to the European Commission for alleged breaches of rules relating to state-owned companies. So obviously, we've not got accountant degrees, but he's basically saying City have got a lot of companies in their group which lie outside the City Football Group structure, extra companies where they put their expenses. These other companies lose money, but not the club. We have reported Man City to the EU. We have the facts and we have the figures. Man City are saying, look, our books are open to be looked at. But I mean, it's interesting that it's La Liga, but he's always been quite hot on this. And he's basically saying that Man City have got an advantage. But I mean, look, I think with Man City, it's been a weird season. And thankfully, you know, it's Aston and Liverpool and Man City aren't in a title race with what's going on. But think we're going to hear something in the next month or so, but they're never going to not. Even if, I mean, God knows what's going to happen with that. But even if they do, there's more, isn't there? I mean, people, it's very much in the football industry. They clearly have a problem with Man City. Yeah,
I mean, the only thing I say with that Tebas thing is maybe to look at some of the Spanish clubs first. Right, because you know what I mean. There's some when you look at some of those Spanish clubs as well, a lot could be said for some of your Real Madrid, Barcelona's, and teams like that as well. However, I mean, this City stuff, they need to bring it to a conclusion now. People need to know what's going on. I kind of feel a bit sorry for their fans. They've got nothing to do with their fans, have they? No. What happens in finances and stuff like that. They want to know. Us as other clubs, we want to know: did they breach these charges or didn't they? Bring it to a conclusion. It's been going on for years, until it's concluded. It does make some of their wins and that a bit tainted because people always, if you're a City fan and you talk about doing the treble, people are like, yeah, but is it a legit treble? Are there, is there anything charges, 115 charges and all that? They need to bring it to a conclusion so we know what's gone on. If they've broken the rules, though, they have to take full punishment. If they haven't broken the rules, then, you've got to give them all their dues. You know what I mean? If they've exploited loopholes and stuff like that, they're fair enough. They've been well run and well organized to do that. You know what I mean? So I just want to see a conclusion to this because, every day you hear something different about it. So they need to bring it to a conclusion.
I just think at some point they need to also just put it out in very simple terms what's happened, because I think most of us understand that they've inflated sponsorship deals and that they, like Newcastle can't do it, even though they're rich, they can't get the money in because of their revenue. And I think Man City are accused of getting that money in ways that they, you're not allowed to do. So that would be very useful if they did do that, because a lot of people just mention 115, and I think football fans need to be told they did this and this helped them buy these players, which helped them win the league, because you're right. Yeah. There is that question mark over the credibility of a lot of the titles they've won.
Mark, do you think, right, that these PSR rules that they've brought in now that are obviously a lot stricter, and you see teams really having to adhere to them, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's brought the pack closer. Like this season, look at teams like Bournemouth, Brighton, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is this having the effect of making the league fairer? And if that's the case, then it's a good thing, because you can't just go out there and just if you're not having a great time of it, just go and spend millions upon millions. And I know City did do that in January, but let's remember, they didn't really do a lot in the summer. They've sold a lot of players. So they had money to do that in the situation they're in. But I just get the feeling that it's making things fairer in this league now. You know what I mean? You can't just go out and just splash a wad, you know, because there could be consequences.
I mean, I certainly understand it from our position at United that it's tight, and that's obviously a lot to do with the debt. You look at someone like Aston Villa and Newcastle. I mean, I do sympathise with Villa when you've got to sell Duran and Luiz to sort of survive, but you're in the top half of the table in the Champions League. And also, I think with Newcastle, richest owners in the world, and they've probably got to sell to buy as well. But I think you're right. I think that you've got to look at cause and effect. And I think that the Premier League, I know Liverpool have won the title in February, and I know the relegation battle's pretty much done, but I still think it's been one of the best leagues we've had in probably a decade. I think it's been so competitive. Like, you never know what's going to happen. We were talking about last weekend. I mean, I wouldn't mind if everyone else could just spend a little bit more. I think the transfer window can be a little bit dull at times, but look, ultimately, it's what happens on the pitch. And I think next season could be, you know, hopefully as good as this one. They just need to sort out the gap between the Premier League and the Champions League a little bit. But no, it's an interesting point. Oh, it just reminds me, actually, did you see Ian Wright and Roy Keane going at each other about Bruno?
I didn't see that, no.
Yeah, yesterday. So, Roy Keane was losing it. Basically losing it, and Wrighty was going, no, I'm not having that about Bruno. So basically, Ian Wright was saying Bruno Fernandes is a special player, he's Man United's best player, and then Roy Keane was sort of like going, if that's the standard, and he absolutely lost it. And then Wrighty was like, if you didn't have, where would you be if you didn't have Bruno? And he says, where are we now? He says 16th. He says 15th. But I
do love Roy Keane. I can't lie. I do love him, man.
Well, I was saying on the United stand, I do sort of, I mean, Bruno's a good player, and he's a good captain, but I don't think he's a great player. I don't think he's a great captain, but because he's in a bad team, he looks good. But I do want to ask you, Bruno or Odegaard, where do you sit on Bruno? I mean, I've always said I'd take Odegaard because I like the way he plays as a 10, but I know he's frustrated a lot of people recently in relation to not scoring enough goals.
Yeah, I mean, listen, last season is definitely Odegaard. This season, after his injury, he's out for about 3 months with that ankle injury. He hasn't looked, himself. So this season, it'd be Bruno. But it's very kind of different types of players. I think Odegaard's a lot more creative. Bruno's a more sort of attacking, definitely, more can score goals, free kicks. You know what I mean? It's a real hard one. I think it's close. Well, I do feel right that Bruno, in my opinion, is a top player. And I actually think the opposite. I think if he was playing with better players, he'd look better. I really do. I think if he was had like better players around him, you probably get a better Bruno. I think because he's playing in a team where the players are not really as good as him, most of them, then all the frustration comes in with him, and and then he's being asked to do things that's not really his game. I think if he's playing in a better team, I think you see a better player. I do rate him. I have to admit, I do rate him as a player.
He reminds me, I would say this, he reminds me of when you used to play at school and everyone gets split up to play football, and sometimes you get put on a shit team and you end up running around everywhere because you're just trying to do, he's shit, you'll run to. I think Bruno is so indisciplined, but I think a lot of that is because he's trying to do 2 or 3 jobs. And I mean, I'd love to see him in a better match. I mean, he is not one of Man United's biggest problems by a long way.
No.
But I'll tell you what, we're going to talk about Man United Fulham. But before we do that, win, lose or draw. It was 24-23 at the head of last week. I can tell you now, it's 29-26 to Robbie. He's opened up a 3-point gap at the top. So unlike his team, he's actually
unlike Arsenal.
Yeah. The standout ones, really, I mean, I had a terrible week. I mean, you got Leicester over Brentford. I went Brentford. You got Everton. You went with the draw. Everton, Man United. I went with Man United. We didn't get Bournemouth, Wolves. We didn't get Arsenal, West Ham. We didn't get Fulham, Palace, which is not surprising. I think they were all surprises. Ipswich, Spurs, we didn't get either. And Southampton, Brighton, yes. We both got that. Villa, Chelsea, we both got that. Newcastle, Forest, we both got that. And then we didn't get City, Liverpool. Actually, I think you did get Ipswich. Spurs. You did do a draw with that. No, you didn't get that.
No, Ipswich lost, didn't they?
Yeah. So you had a 1 point lead. Yeah. 29-26, 3 point lead there.
Okay.
So we're going to do the FA Cup.
Right.
We were looking at it. There's some probably obvious ones there, but we're going to do the FA Cup. Let's start off with the biggest game: Man United against Fulham, Sunday afternoon. It's Bruno in the chaos, I think, and Dorgu won't play because he got sent off.
Yeah.
Deservedly so. I felt sorry for him. But what are you thinking about Man United Fulham?
A very hard game to call.
Mm-hmm.
If I was Fulham, I'd be going for this 100%, right? And at Fulham, when you played them at their ground, they were so disappointing, weren't they?
Yeah, they were terrible.
They were awful. But they do carry threats. Yeah, they've got a good side, and they do carry threats, right, in Traore but then Man United really need this as well. This is a great opportunity for United to win this again when you look at the teams that are left in it. I'm going to go with a shock here, I know you always beat Fulham. I think this could be the shock. I'm going to go... Do I go against United in this? United are at home.
Yeah.
Fulham. Shock.
Yeah, well, it's win or lose this week because we can't do draw because somebody's got to win.
Yeah.
I actually would have gone opposite anything you said just to make it interesting. On the United Stand preview, I said Fulham. But you know what? But
you always beat them, though, innit? To be honest, you always beat them. But I don't know. I just think this could be. This is Fulham's season, isn't it? They've got to win. Try and win the FA Cup. You've got to go with your absolute strongest team if you're Fulham.
Yeah.
And United, to be honest.
I'll go Man United, but I know I am worried about this one. I think Fulham are a better team than us, and that's always a big problem at Old Trafford.
And it might suit them that it's away. I think the crowd's going to have a big part to play in this for United. It really is.
Yeah. I think it's probably the pick of the weekend, but we'll go through the rest of them. Villa, Cardiff tonight. I'll go Villa win. Yeah.
Yeah, Villa comfortably, I think.
Then into the Saturdays, we've got Crystal Palace at home to Millwall. You'd know more than me. I know it's London. Then are they close-ish or?
Ooh, that's when that game got drawn out of the air, I don't think the police would have been too happy about that. Yeah, no, they're those grounds are close. You know what I mean? Yeah. Both of them are in South London. Millwall Southeast, Crystal Palace Southwest, but it is close, very close. That probably, when I think about it, probably the closest ground to Fulham to Palace is Millwall. Yeah, they're the closest. Yeah. I used to live sort of in between the two grounds. So yeah, they're probably the closest. That is a proper local derby. But you got Millwall have done all right in the FA Cup so far. But Palace at home, they're playing well. They'll go strong. They'll see this as an opportunity for a trophy as well. Mateta's on form. I don't know how they're going to handle him. So yeah, I've got to go for a Palace win.
Yeah, I agree. I think the gap between the Championship and the Premier League, as we see with Ipswich and Leicester, I mean, yeah, I'll go Palace on that. Brentford, Burnley. I'm up first on this. I think this is a hard one because I know Burnley are up near the top of the Championship, but again, it's away from home. I've got no idea on the form of either of these two teams. I'll tell you what, I'm gonna go Preston. I'll go with the home team, Preston.
Who's played? You just said
Preston and Burnley. Preston.
Oh, Preston and Burnley.
Yeah.
It's another local derby, isn't it? Because both teams really close together. Burnley have got that this season. They've had an unbelievable. I think they've gone. I can't remember how many games they've gone with clean sheets. They've got like a brilliant defense. So it's going to be actually. I look forward to watch a game like that because that'll be have a proper cup atmosphere because that's a local derby. But I'll go Burnley.
There we go. I was just going to have a quick look at the table in the Championship. So Burnley
got a chance of going up, innit? They're looking about third or fourth.
Yeah, Burnley third, and then Preston mid-table. So
yeah.
Okay. Next up, we've got Bournemouth Wolves, another Premier League game. I mean, bloody hell, it's a repeat of last week where we both went with Bournemouth. You're up first on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go Bournemouth. They're at home. I think the priorities of Wolves is staying up, which I think they are going to do now. They've still got the quality of Mateus Cunha and that. They did win last week, but remember, Bournemouth had a man sent off. I think Bournemouth will be out for revenge. I'm going to go Bournemouth.
Yeah, I'm going to go Bournemouth on this one. Similarly to what you were saying about Fulham and Brighton, I think there's such an opportunity here to actually get to Wembley when you look at who's left. They've lost their last 2 in a row as well. So I think, and I don't see Wolves doing that twice in a week. Man City, Plymouth. What is it about Man City, eh? Hot balls on the draw. I mean, Salford. Who did they have last time as well? Bloody God knows. Solihull Moors probably. Plymouth, Argyle.
Easy. Yeah. I mean, Plymouth, they knocked out
Liverpool.
They knocked out Liverpool.
Yeah.
But, I don't think, at the Etihad. Nah.
What a boring game at 5:45.
Yeah,
on Saturday as well.
and you know what City are like as well. You know what City are like as well. They're going to put like 7 past them. You know what I mean? They'll play their strongest team. But having said that, oh no, they're out of the Champions League, isn't it? They're out of the Champions League, so they've got to go for this. This is probably the only thing. City, this is the only thing they can win this season. So they're going to go for this. Boy, this is going to be an annihilation. It's City.
Newcastle, Brighton.
Who did you go for? Is it? Or it's not even worth asking you?
Oh yeah, City, 100%. Yeah, I think we should almost have a handicap here. I'll go City by 3 goals, but yeah, no, I don't. Yeah. Newcastle, Brighton on Sunday is the second to last one to do. I think Brighton are doing a lot better these days, and again, I think it would be great for a Brighton to try and win a cup, but Newcastle. I watched them at City away, terrible. But then I remember them against you at home in the Carabao Cup, brilliant. Won last week against Forest. I just can't bet against Newcastle. I wouldn't be surprised if Brighton did it, but I think at home they're very strong.
Let me go against you on this. Let me go with a shock. Brighton are a good side, man. Good, on their day when they get it together, they score goals. Mitoma's on form. Minter. Going back to his, I'm shocked. Brighton win.
I'll tell you what, I'd love to see Brighton win.
I'd love to see Brighton go far in this. I really would. You know what I mean? I've got a little soft spot for Brighton. So, Brighton win. I like how they play football.
Done Man United, Fulham. So the last one is City Ground Monday night, and it's another Premier League one actually. Forest, Ipswich. Forest. Played you. Right. You probably know more about them. Go.
When they played us, man, they parked the bus like Jesus Christ, man. But I think they won't play like that against Ipswich, and they'll have too much for Ipswich because on the counter attack they're very dangerous. Just because we got, one area where we're still very strong is in defence, and we got Saliba and Gabriel and Timber to deal with that counter attack, and they snuffed it out. But watching Ipswich's defence in recent games. Okay, it's Forest all day long.
Yeah, it's funny because you played Forest on Wednesday, we played Ipswich, and I just think if Ipswich are at their best at Portman Road, maybe, but as you say, like
even at Portman Road,
45 minutes, 45 minutes against 10 men, and your whole bloody future depends on it, and they couldn't create anything, and actually when we attacked, we looked more likely to score. So. Yeah. I mean, again, for Forest, they're a bit like Brighton and Fulham. I mean, what an opportunity to get into a quarter-final and, maybe get a decent draw, and they could be looking at Wembley.
All of these Premier League teams left in it got a great chance of winning this because, you'd say United or City are the favourites, right? But none of them are really on form, are they? So if you're a Newcastle, Brighton, Nottingham Forest, you've got a big chance here. Fulham, you've got a big chance here, Bournemouth as well. So, Arsenal are out, Liverpool are out, some of the traditional Chelsea are out. This is a big opportunity for one of those teams to go all the way to the final.
100%. Well, we'll see how it is on Monday when I'll be on DR Sports to talk about what happened over the weekend. Thank you very much, Robbie. Lots for people to get their comments in as per usual.
Mark, just before you go, I wanted to get your opinion on this whole Carragher thing as well, right? Because that's been another big debate as well, this whole thing about the Africa Cup of Nations. What did you make of that?
I think it was blown out of proportion a bit, because what I think he was effectively saying is that if you win the Euros or the World Cup, you are going to get more status than if you win the AFCON. I think where he went wrong is when Mika Richards said he's won the AFCON, and he sort of like went, "You're joking," and it came across as quite, condescending. And then I think Rio Ferdinand sort of jumped in on it, like he does sometimes, to sort of like make it, because he's him and I don't know what it is with Rio at the moment. He seems to be a bit. It's like Neville and Carragher get under his skin. Maybe they're getting better brand deals or something. But I think I'd say this: if there hasn't been an AFCON in January, if there had been and Egypt had won it, I'm 100% convinced that would enhance Mo Salah's chance of winning the Ballon d'Or. So I sort of disagree. I think the Euros is more appealing, and so is the World Cup. But I've always said if Mo Salah was French or Brazilian, he'd get a lot more.
100%.
I think it's like Son at South Korea, isn't it?
Yeah. Listen, the point he made about Salah not getting the recognition, I applauded him on that. He's right. And this guy, I do feel, because he's an African player, he doesn't get the record. I've been saying this for ages. That Salah, if he was European, he probably would have won a Ballon d'Or already. He consistently does it every year. He's one of the best players this Premier League has ever seen. But sometimes you go up to people and say, who's the best player all time in the Premier League? And he never gets a mention, right? So there's that. But I do think as well, he's got to recognise that the African Cup of Nations may not be big for him, but to that continent, I can tell you this, it's huge. Yeah. And, I think what this is probably is blown a little bit too much out of proportion, and but I think what we got to take from this is we've got to recognise other continents' tournament. I was at the Asia Cup last year, and that means a lot to those people down there. That is the same passion we get when we watch in England in the Euros, is the same passion they get. So we got to put respect on all of these different continents' cups, you know what I mean, and judge them equally, not just because it's been played in Europe. And I think hopefully that's the point, and that's the takeaway that comes from this. I think Carragher was trying to, make a fair point initially, but
a little bit wrong, didn't he?
Yeah. But anyway,
and the fact that you've got Arsenal fan, Man United fan talking about Salah just shows you as well. You're never going to go wrong with the fans, and I think Salah, by the powers that be, is underrated. But I think in fan bases across the world, everyone has the same opinion. Like, why has he not won more Ballon d'Ors, or why does he not get more?
Doesn't get the
because
recognition.
What he's done in the Premier League is incredible.
Yeah, he's an incredible player.
Legend, Robbie, thank you very much for coming on. Lots for people to unpack there. Get in the comments as usual. And enjoy your gardening.
See you on Monday.
See you later.